Hey guys, welcome to another YouTube video, and welcome to the first episode of BD AFL Saturday review in a long time, probably since round one. So apologies for not doing these. I've been busy. I've been not doing it for a lot of different reasons. A couple of which been busy. Easter, just a lot. I apologize. I didn't do this a lot earlier, but by the way, but Easter this week, and then obviously a couple of times where I just didn't feel like it, and then obviously other reasons as well, like a couple of weeks ago with the Australian Grand Prix as well. So. Excuse me. So it caught my interest as well. So that's why I haven't been doing them as of late. Hopefully, I will be getting into these. Hopefully, over the course of the season. So I hope I'll do these more. Straight into the games today. Straight into the games from Saturday. Obviously, it was the game down at Adelaide Oval between the Adelaide Crows and the Fremantle Dockers. The Saturday Twilight game between Richmond and the Western Bulldogs. And then the two Saturday night games. The one down at Marvel Stadium between St Kilda and the Gold Coast Suns, and the absolute thriller down at the SCG between Sydney and Port Adelaide. That I'll mention later. So we'll start off in order here. So we'll get started straight away here. We'll get started with the Adelaide Fremantle game. I openly admit I've got a lot of teams wrong at the start of this year so far. The two main ones being Collingwood, the two main ones being Collingwood and Geelong, but the other team I think I've gotten wrong is Adelaide. I think after losing their first two games, I thought, maybe they just need something, but the showdown this week and last week and then this week, this game against the Dockers really proves that they are possibly finals contenders. I'm not going to say genuine. I'm not going to say that because otherwise the Carlton season from last year really did affect me in a way of basically, I can't trust teams if you can't say genuine finals contenders when they basically are finals contenders pretty much. So it was a fast start for Adelaide, with 6 goals to 3 in the first term. Opening up a 17-point lead at quarter time, and then they opened that margin up at half time to I think 36 points, so 6 goals, with a 4-goal to 1 second term. In the second term, so as I said, a 6-goal advantage at half time. Then goals were pretty much at a premium after that. Pretty much, with Fremantle reducing the lead just slightly, thanks to kicking scoring 2 goals to 1 goal in that third quarter, cutting the margin down to, I believe, I want to correct myself. 1 goal 4, I should say, 2 goals too. So reduced the margin from 36 points down to, I believe, 32. Yeah, 32 points at the final change. And then much like the showdown the previous week, Adelaide just went on with the job in the last quarter, kicking six goals to 4 in that final term. More accurately, 6 goals 1 to 4 goals 6. So it was a high scoring last quarter, but in the end, Adelaide came home with a 39-point win to make their to have a record of 2-2, and of course, Fremantle, the Dockers, being in deep trouble after making finals last year, and actually winning a final, to now starting 1-3 after 4 rounds. Which I'll get into in a bit. So we'll get into the goals here for the Crows. Tex Walker led in that with 4 goals. Rankin with 3. With Shelley also had 3. Saligo with 2. Gallant also had 2, and then Phil Thorpe, Miller, and Jordan Dawson all had 1 goal. For the Dockers, you had Taverner and Schultz with Taverner, Schultz, and Banfield with 2 each, and then Jackson, Hughes, Henry, and Amos all had 1 goal each. The best for the Crows, not surprisingly, was Jordan Dawson, and then Rochelle, Walker, and Rankin. Not surprisingly, those 4 were the best on ground for the Crows. Michelani as well, and McHenry as well. The best, not much best for the Dockers. Not surprisingly, those were Sarong, Brayshaw, Ryan, and Sean Darcy were the best for the Dockers. The leading disposal getters on the ground for the Crows. Rory led that with 27. Jordan Dawson, led with 28, I should say. Dawson with 27, Brody Smith with 24, Rory Sloan with 23, and McHenry with 22 touches. For the Dockers, Andrew Brayshaw was the only one with that had 30 disposals or more in this game. He had 31. Sarong with 28, Ryan with 22, and then O'Meara and Hughes with 19 touches each. No injuries to report from out of that game. In terms of the subs, for Adelaide, Harry Schoenberg replaced Jordan Butts at 3/4 time, and then for the Dockers, Matthew Johnson replaced Nathan O'Driscoll in the 3rd term. The game was played in front of 33,220. Let me say the attendance again. 33,725 people at the Adelaide Oval. So I want to talk about the Dockers for a second, because their finals chances now, I had them as a top 4 contender. If you watch my season predictions, I had them in both my ladder predictor and the actual ladder prediction. I had them both finishing, I think, top 4. I think finished both of them finished around top 4, contending for top 4. Those chances now at 1 and 3 are now gone. I think, in my opinion. If that was like about 10 years ago or 20 years ago, then where the competition wasn't as even back then, back 10 or 20 years ago, then probably maybe, yeah, you could you could recover that, but now because probably the competition is the most even it has been for, ever in its history. It's so hard. It's going to be hard now to recover from this particular start that the Dockers are in. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is that they've had the distinction of not solving their solving their attacking issues while making their defense worse. They were the second best defensive team in the league last year, behind Melbourne. And that was why we were waxing lyrical about them throughout most part of 2022 was their defense. As I said, they've somehow just made it. They've somehow just not focused on their attack, fixed their attack by, and at the same time making their defense worse. And it's just. We all thought that, and I knew straight away that Luke Jackson was not going to fix their forward line issues because Melbourne mostly played him as a ruckman, to be honest. And I certainly don't think Sean Darcy is going to be one that is going to be playing most of his time, and it's going to play the other 50% in the forward line, 50-50 forward line ruck. I don't think he's been the show as the ruckman ever since he came on the scene with the Dockers. Ever since he came on the scene, I think for me it's just so it's they need to sort this out. And I've got to be honest with you, before the year was out, after the trade period last year, I thought to myself, there was only two teams that I thought would drop at any team. There was two teams that made the 8 last year that had the potential to drop out: Collingwood and Fremantle. Both of them for different reasons. Unfortunately, I chose Collingwood over Fremantle, and I thought that maybe they would take the next level, which judging by their start to the year, I've gotten completely wrong. So it's just gonna be a difficult place to be for the Dockers being one and 3. But they are versing the Gold Coast Suns next week in Gabba round, so there could be the chance of possibly either they get that confidence boosting win and get themselves back on track for the remainder of the season, or they'll lose against the Suns and us talking about them like this, like in this tone, it's just going to continue. So yeah. But switch on the other side of things, Adelaide. They're an attractive team to watch now. I remember I watched Access All Areas on the AFL app. I remember Matthew Lloyd said that they used to be this boring team. Now fans want to come and watch them, and I don't know if it's solely the Isaac Rankin factor. I wonder if Matthew Nicks, once it was found out that Rankin was going to become an Adelaide Crow, was going to be like, you know what, we got this fast. We already got guys like Saligo and Rochelle. Of course, you got Miller there. You got, and then of course you got like Dawson. Of course, you got Laird, Dawson, Sloan come back in after missing most of 2022, if not all of 2022. And with that feeding to the light, and then with, you know, the likes of Walker, Phil Thorpe, and Fogarty, and I've got them completely wrong. I immediately said in my prediction, I think they need to go one step back to go 2 steps forward, and they've just gone the complete 3 steps from these last couple of weeks. We'll find out where they really are at on Thursday night against Carlton to start off. Ironically, to start off Gather round at Adelaide Oval. That will be. I'm gonna watch that game. It's gonna be very interesting to see how Adelaide's gonna go against Carlton on that front. So a lot of upside for the Crows, yet a lot of downsides really for the Dockers. Moving on to the Twilight game down at the G between Richmond and the Western Bulldogs. Immediately, the Bulldogs got and you could see with 3 of these 4 games, you could see a bit of a trend here in the first quarter with 3 out of these 4 Saturday games. The Bulldogs jumped Richmond in the first quarter. Kicking 6 goals to 2 in that first quarter. It was a really fast start, really for the Dogs. Capitalising on their confidence after a confidence building win over Brisbane over Brisbane at Marvel last week. But then the I like to call the Brisbane the Richmond Avalanche started. I mean, they kicked. The Richmond Avalanche. They kicked 8 goals to 2 in that second term. They went from trying to do some quick maths here. They went from 23 points down at quarter time to I believe 15. I think I'm trying to do some quick maths here. 14 points up at half time with an 8 goal to 2 second quarter, which was unbelievable. And it was a very fast paced game as well, with the fact that there was 18 goals that were kicked in the first half. So it was a very fast paced game. Then after that, the goals were basically almost at a premium after half time. With only the 1 goal kicked in the third term, which was ironically from the Bulldogs, with Richmond only kicking the 4 behinds, as they took a narrow lead by a kick, by exactly a goal in the 3/4 time, and then the last quarter, from what I heard, was an absolute thriller. Absolute classic. I mean, a minute to go, the Bulldogs went in front, and they pretty much stayed there for the whole game. I mean, Richmond had their chance to win the game late, but unfortunately it wasn't enough, as the rain just teetered down late in the game. But the Bulldogs hold on to win the match by 5 points, and from a precarious position at 0-2 after 2 embarrassing losses to Melbourne and to St Kilda, they've now rebounded with 2 straight wins to Brisbane and now to Richmond. So they've now boasted their confidence really for the Bulldogs. Heading into the goals now, you got Bolton. You got Bolton with 3. Lynch with 2, and Tom Lynch with 2, and then Ryan, Cumberland, Clark, Hopper, Ralph Smith, Martin, and Taranto all kicked 1. And then for the Bulldogs, you got Aaron Norton with 3, Liberatore and English with 2 goals each. and then Lob, Caleb Daniel, McRae, Hannon, and McComb all kicked 1 goal each. The best for Richmond were, of course, Baker, Martin, Pickett, Vlosten, Bolton, and Daniel Rioli. And then the best for the doggies were Bailey Dale, Marcus Bontempelli, Aaron Norton, Treloar, Bruce, and Liberatore. The leading disposal getters on the ground were for Richmond, Daniel Rioli with 29, Tim Taranto with 27, Baker with 25, Hopper with 24, and Martin with 23 touches there. For the doggies, Bailey Dale led with 30 touches. Treloar and Bontempelli both with 25 touches each. Bailey Smith with 24 and Liberatore with 23 touches each. A few injuries to come out of that game, not only from the game but post that game as well. Jack Graham, of course, was out of the game due to a hamstring problem. So yet again, another more soft tissue injury problems for the Tigers. And then obviously, as it was confirmed yesterday that Tom Lynch will be out for a couple of months with I think it was a calf injury or a foot injury, I believe. And then it was revealed earlier today that that captain Toby Nankervis is going to be out for a couple of months with the good old syndesmosis injury. So yeah, a lot of injuries to come out of that game. So injuries for the doggies, of course, Alex Keefe, he was subbed out due to concussion, off a bump from Tom Lynch, which that is going to go straight, which has been confirmed, will go to the tribunal. Which will be here probably over the next couple of days. Probably going to be pointless anyways because he's going to be out for a month or two with injury. Maybe when he comes back, he might have to serve whatever weeks he gets after he's recovered from injury, probably. And then Crozier injures his back in that game also. The subs for both sides for the Tigers, Trent Cotchin obviously replaced the injured Jack Graham in the second term, and then Mitch Hannon replaced Alex Keefe as I said, he subbed out with concussion in the first term. The game was played in front of 56,449 people at the Goodale G. So a lot to take out of that game. I think for me, I think the Bulldogs, I believe that their confidence is back up now after, as I said, losing by 50 points to the D's in round one, and then losing by I think 40 odd points, I believe, against the Saints in round two, and then of course the impressive win over Brisbane last week, and then this week beating Richmond has to buoy them up for the rest of the year. On that front, but the injury toll is probably the most concerning for me, for the Dogs, and both sides actually as well. I mean, Richmond, of course, if you guys didn't realize in that revolt, I didn't mention Jack Revolt in that name because he wasn't. He was. I think he was left out of the team. I think he was rested, I believe. So yeah, and it was, it's very concerning, really. With the fact that and the fact that Samson Ryan, he's been in the side mostly as a forward for the last couple of weeks. we don't know if he's going to be playing as a forward or a ruck because Tom Lynch is out. But then at the same time, Toby Dean Kerbers is going to be out. So we don't know what the Tigers are going to do. We don't know if they're gonna play Samson Ryan in the ruck. I don't know, but yeah, it's going to be very concerning time really for Richmond for the next couple of months now that they don't have big Toby, and then obviously no Tom Lynch. I would assume for a month or two and a bit, because obviously he will get suspended. I think for that hit on Alex Keefe, which I'll explain in depth when it comes to the footy wrap up, when it comes to the BD footy wrap up. But yeah, so it's a tale of two halves for both sides, but for one side, but then bad news after bad news really for another team. Out of this game of footy at the MCG, which ended in teeming rain. Now on to Saturday night, and oh boy, I think one team which has been at the forefront throughout the first 4 weeks in the competition had really proved a massive statement on Saturday night. That being Ross Lyons St Kilda. I mean, they are the formidable side in the competition. Really, it was really, quarter time. The Gold Coast Suns challenged them. Actually leading by 2. They actually led by 2 points at quarter time, mind you. In that, but then after quarter time, it was all St Kilda. Five goals to 1 at half time. At half time, and then another 5 goals to 1 quarter again. So 10 goals to 2 in the middle 2 quarters, and then 4 goals. And then 4 goals to 3 at half in the final quarter, registered a 53-point win for St Kilda, maintaining their position on top of the ladder. To the goal scorers from this game for the Saints, Jack Higgins obviously has led for the front with a bag of 5. Which means he's now on. He's kicked 9 goals in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, kicked 4 against Essendon. He's now kicked 5 this week, so that means he takes his tally to 9 in 2 games. Hill with 2, Kamaminti with 2, Owens with 2, and then Windhager, Sinclair, Philippou, Cordy, and Butler with 1 goal each. No multiple goal scorers for the Gold Coast Suns. The goal scorers, or the singular goal scorers, were Roses, King, Jeffrey, Casbolt, Anderson, Ainsworth, Sexton, and Holman. The best for St Kilda, not surprisingly, was Owens. I mean, ridiculous game. He probably will get the Rising Star nomination, most likely from this round. I think he had like 27 touches, 2 goals, and like 17 of those possessions were contested as well. So that just proves how good he was, and he really has surprised me. I'll get to those youngsters. Get to talk about those St Kilda youngsters in a sec. And then you got Hill, Higgins, Sinclair, Rowan Marshall, and Wilkie and Crouch. The best of the sorry lot for the Gold Coast Suns were Anderson, Miller, Powell, Collins, and Ainsworth. The leading possession getters on the ground, Crouch led for St Kilda with 34. Sinclair with 31, Ross with 30, Owens and Owens and Hunter Clark with 27 touches each. The leading disposal getters for the Gold Coast Suns, Noah Anderson led from the front. Was the lone shining light for them. With 38. Miller with 32. Lockie Weller with 30. McPherson with 25 and Powell with 19. Only one injury to come out of that game was Bytel suffered an ankle injury for St Kilda. Only one late change out of the original side, which was from the Gold Coast Suns, with Jared Witts out of the side, replaced by first game at Ned Moyle in that. The subs for the games were for St Kilda, Jack Bytel. He replaced Rowan Marshall in the last quarter, but unfortunately in the last quarter, sometime Bytel got injured, as I said a moment ago. And then Alex Sexton replaced Joel Jeffrey, also in the last term as well as a sub for the Suns. The game was played in front of a measly crowd of 21,049 people at Marvel Stadium. One fact to come out of this game is after this game, it is only the third time in St Kilda's history in the VFL AFL that they've started the season 4-0 and had a percentage over 160%. Those previous two seasons were 1966 and 2009. One of which, and in the premiership, the club's sole premiership, I should correct myself, and probably one of the more dominant seasons in St Kilda's history, where they went 19 matches without losing a game. So yeah. It is. I want to say something about the Gold Coast Suns real quick. I know that they had that shock win over Geelong last week. They have really disappointed me. You could say you want they're just done there before, yada yada yada. Me tipping them to be in the finals, that was my decision. Because I believed in the hype. I believed in the hype. I mean, I said for so much throughout the preseason in my head that they have the most underrated list, and said no excuses. And yet they're 1-3 and they're 17th on the ladder. Yeah, it's not this is just the norm for the Gold Coast Suns. Once they have a pretty decent season, everyone's thinking, they're gonna challenge for finals the next season. Next season rolls around and they drop back to bottom 3 on the ladder, and it is terrible to say the least. This was the year. For me, this was the year that the Gold Coast Suns finally made a name for themselves in the AFL. Finally. And unfortunately, they haven't done it. They haven't done it. They failed to be a Sydney side that had just come off of an embarrassing loss in the grand final. Yes, they still have star players, but yeah, they didn't do that. Then and then the previous week they were dead level with Essendon. I watched all this game. They were dead level with Essendon. They were dead level with Essendon in the third quarter at 3/4 time. Everyone was saying, "Oh, who's going to step up?" No one did, and they ended up losing the game by 5 goals. The same question was asked at 3/4 time last week against Geelong. And whoop-de-doo, they ended up winning the game thanks to Lukosius kicking 5. And then rolling up this week against St Kilda, a chance where they can send an ominous warning to the rest of the competition going into 2-2, and that would be rather respectable. But no, they ended up getting beaten by a secure side, which probably everybody was a bit. I can't remember the words to say. Can't think of the word. Wrote off. That's the one. Wrote off. And yeah, I immediately said after they played the practice game down at Moorabbin against us that, yeah, they're going to be finishing high. Because everyone, even some people, even predicted them to win the Spoon. Which I thought was ridiculous. Because there was like a couple of sides, in my opinion, that could be benefiting, could more in favour to win the Spoon than St Kilda was. And I was like, I won't be surprised they finished. I didn't tip them to make finals, but I would expect them to finish around 9th to 11th range. Now with them being 4-0 and being on top of the ladder, that is not going to be that case. I think that I believe, I can't remember specifically what's the percentage for 4-0 for teams that 4-0 that made finals. Probably a high percentage, maybe between 75 and 80% chance that a team that ends up being 4-0 after 4 games ends up making finals, which is probably that sort of thing, really. So I think, yeah, and one last thing before I move on to the final game, the Port Adelaide Sydney Port Adelaide game. Is it just me, or are the St Kilda youngsters the most underrated group of youngsters in the competition? I mean, the three that I mentioned, Owens, Camaminti, and Philippou. Are they the most underrated? Well, certainly not Philippou. Everybody was talking about Matthias Philippou for ages throughout the preseason. And it's proved the hype in these first 4 games. But I was surprised with. I've been impressed with Owens, and I've also been impressed by Camaminti. In these first 4 weeks. I mean, Philippou, he'll earn a Rising Star nomination. Hopefully over the next few weeks. Probably not this week, because Owens is probably most likely is going to get it for his ridiculous stats this week. And then of course Camaminti has been close to scoring pretty much a goal every game this season. I mean, everyone's been talking about Dersma, Butters, Rosie, those 3 for Port Adelaide. Talking about the Dacos brothers for Collingwood. Every single Essendon, even back 2 years ago, that everyone was waxing lyrical about Essendon when we bought Cox, Perkins, Jones into the side, even Reid as well. Everyone was waxing lyrical about them. Are these 3 youngsters the most underrated in the competition? In my opinion, everyone's been talking about Nick Dacos. Everyone's been talking about Ashcroft. Everyone's been talking about Dersma, Butters, and Rosie. Everyone's been talking about Chad Warner. Yeah, are these 3 the most? They're certainly not the best. They're certainly not the best. Definitely not. But are they underrated? 110%, yes. Because based on performances alone, really. So yeah, it's just crazy, really. The fact that and there's a lot of youngsters, in there as well that that haven't named that's in that St Kilda side as well. So yeah, which I can't name for time restrictions. So yeah, which is kind of strange, really, to say the least. Then you got, and and also that mix of youth and experience in that side, like the likes of Higgins, who's been in the AFL system for at least I think almost 5 years now. I remember I saw a picture on Instagram. Speaking of Jack Higgins, I saw that picture on Instagram where he this photo, I think it was back in 2005 when he was a little kid. Went to I think it was the St Kilda Brisbane game. I think it was a round 22 game. In 2005, St Kilda against Brisbane, he was there. They showed a picture of him when he was filmed on the telecast back in the Channel 10 days. And then it was just really good to see. And then moving on and then back on the serious part, you got Seb Ross in there as well. And then of course you got the likes of Wilkie in there as well. And then also you got these youngsters as well, as I said, in Philippou, Owens and Camaminti as well. So they've got a really good mix in there, a really good mix of youth and experience, and it's probably gonna be a great thing for the Saints in there. And those years that I said about starting 4 and Zip and having a percentage over 160%, the worst of them, they had a grand final loss. Well, in home and away season, St Kilda finished second in 66 and went on to win the flag. And then 2009, they ended up finishing top but lost the grand final. So who knows how far this Saints team's going to go? But it's really exciting to see how they'll go for the rest of the year. And I can't wait for them to verse Collingwood because that will show that if they are the real deal or not. With them, because basically 5-0. If you're 5-0, then you're pretty much in the finals anyway. So yeah. And finally, saving the best game to last. The absolute thriller down at the SCG between Sydney and Port Adelaide. Much like the other 3 games I mentioned, which wasn't St Kilda and Gold Coast, which was a trend. Sydney got out to an early lead, keeping Adelaide goalless. Scoring 3 goals, keeping the 3 behind, while scoring 3 goals to themselves. But to Port Adelaide's credit, they really got back into the game, kicking 4 goals to 1 in the third term, and keeping the margin even, or make it even at half time. And then Sydney really did. It was much like the first term. Sydney really did stamp their superiority, kicking 3 goals for to 1 goal 2. Those 4 behinds could have easily have all been goals, but yeah, but there was one last twist to the tale. So and the lead changed time and time again, and then and then obviously I think and it all started with 2 minutes to go, where Charlie Dixon gave away a ridiculously stupid 50-meter penalty. I mean, I don't know why he went for a kick like that back to the Sydney player. It was obviously that was going to get the 50-meter penalty, which it did, and ultimately I can't remember who it was. I think it was Heaney, I believe. I think it was it was Blakey. Sorry, it was Blakey that had the kick. Sorry. Moved to win 50. It was a beautiful kick. He spent probably the first year or 2 in the AFL system as a key forward, so obviously he knows his way around a set shot at goal. So he kicked the goal, put him in front, and then Jeremy Finlayson marked the ball inside the attacking 50 for Port Adelaide. He kicked the goal to put him back in front, and then it looked like it was I was on the edge of my seat, pretty much. I think they got the ball. I think Sydney got the ball in their defensive 50 with about 15 seconds left, and they just and it was that quick. It was that quick that basically one kick, boom, straight down the corridor, and of course it's the SCG. So obviously, if you go down the corridor, you'll just go down. All we need to do is have 2 kicks, and then in your attacking 50, and basically kick to Florent, lined up for goal, and I knew straight away with the time that he's going to have a kick after the siren, to win the game. So he kicks it. It's online, and I thought, they've got this, because I tipped Sydney to win. I thought, yes, they get it, and then suddenly belts it, and I thought, hang on, what's going on here? I thought they were going to go to score review, but as it turned out, it didn't. And then about 5 minutes after the final, after the game, they did show the post camera angle from the goalpost of that kick on goal, and for me, it was nowhere near the goal. There was no wonder why it didn't go to a score review, because there was no way there, and Alia again. I mean, it was just unbelievable, really, for them in the end. But it was a very controversial and very thrilling way to end the game. One of the more thrilling endings of the year, equal to probably the opening game, Carlton and Richmond game, where that ended in a draw. Unpack that game in terms of goal kickers for the Swans. Chad Warner had 2. McDonald with 2, and then Papley, Laddams, Florent, Blakey, and Heaney all kicked 1. In terms of the power, Jeremy Finlayson was the shining light for them in front of goals with 3, the only multiple goal kicker for them, and then Rosie, McEntee, Marshall, Powell Pepper, Horn Francis, and Butters all kicked 1 goal each for the power. The best for Sydney, not surprisingly, was Chad Warner. He was an excitement machine pretty much all of that game for them. Florent, Laddams, Blakey, Parker, and Errol Goulden. The best for the power was Alia. Not surprisingly, probably the LA at the top with that match-saving punch on the goal line off of Ollie Florence, set shot for goal after the siren to win it. But then it was Butters, Finlayson, Dersma, Horn Francis, and McKenzie were the best for Port Adelaide. The leading disposal getters on the ground for Sydney. Florent led them with 33 for Sydney with 33 disposals. Warner with 30, Lloyd with 24, Parker with 22, and Callum Mills with 21. For Port Adelaide, Butters with 27, Dersma with 22, Rosie with his jumper number of 20, and then Boak and Wines with 19 touches each. A couple injuries and a couple of both of them with concussions, and pretty sad concussions with both the McCartan brothers of Tom and most sadly Paddy. Both, and I think both of them, I believe, were in the first half. I believe I was going to say first quarter, but I think it was mostly first half. I think. McCartan, it was a pretty innocuous accident where he pretty much slammed his head in the turf pretty much, and without any warning, they just basically and unfortunately this is his 10th concussion in his AFL career. I remember, speaking of Access O'Leary, they had a very good conversation about this and saying could the AFL they didn't say this on on access all areas. They didn't say it, but maybe give McCartan an ultimatum in saying that if you get another if you play on and get another concussion, your career is over. But if you retire for now, that ultimatum is going to eventually happen, because 10 concussions in his career. I think it's his first major one, first real concussion. I think I know that. I think against Hawthorn, I believe. He had one. There was a bit of a scare when he had one, but it turns out it wasn't. It was pretty much a calf injury, anyways. And then he had nine concussions when he was down at St Kilda. He hadn't played for a couple of years before last year. This is his first major concussion since he's not major, but first concussion since he's come back, and it's a real shame, really, for him. And it'll be a deep shame if he was to real deep shame if he continue, if he is to retire, but from the game, he loves playing AFL football, football and all that. And the thoughts go to the McCartan family as well, because Tom also suffered a concussion as well. So both of them are going to miss Gab around, and obviously the defence looked lost without the McCartan brothers there, and I don't know who's gonna go back in replacement for those two as backs for them. The subs, so Sydney for the Swans, Robbie Fox obviously replaced Paddy McCartan in the first term. Apparently, it's the quickest substitution of the season so far, after 5 minutes. Because basically it happened pretty much straight away. They pretty much replaced McCartan after it was confirmed that he did suffer a concussion. And then Darcy Byrne-Jones replaced Junior Eoli in the last term for the Power. The game was played in front of 31,686, but from the roar of the crowd after the siren, when it looked like Foreign was going to kick it, it sounded like there was basically 50,000 there, pretty much. So a big confidence boosting win for Port Adelaide. I mean, they've just come off, of course, two disappointing losses after a very impressive win over Brisbane in round 1, and then being smashed by Collingwood in round 2. And then of course a disappointing outing in the showdown against the Crows. They needed this win because otherwise pressure would be mounting on Ken Hinkley, and now this thing has happened. So yeah, and then suddenly after two thumping wins for Sydney against Gold Coast and Hawthorn, they are now 2-2. They're being beaten by Melbourne and now Port Adelaide. So very interesting to see. This season could go pretty, like other teams that are 2-2. I call the teams that are 2-2 right now. Season can go either way, but yeah, it's pretty interesting to see how Sydney will go over the remainder of the season. So that is pretty much it. So pretty much it for this video. So two thrillers on the Saturday, and then two impressive performances by two teams who has one of them staked their claim as a finals contender, as a possible finals contender. The other one a genuine finals contender now. With the other one. So like this video, shares to anybody who is an Adelaide fan or a Port Adelaide fan or a St Kilda fan. Comment down below what were your thoughts on these matches. And what were your opinions? Do you agree with what my opinions were, especially about St Kilda's youngsters? I'd like to hear your thoughts and opinions. And one last thing, somewhere down there, click on the big red button which is labelled subscribe. Until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later, and wherever you may be, may the sun or the moon shine on you.